You can hit it whenever you want, Drake.
And boys and girls, this is the part of the episode that I hope we have referenced before this point. I'm coming in absolutely high and dry here. I feel like a virgin getting his first piece of nice sweet peach. And that is how I'm going to introduce our guest today, because he is a virgin to this podcast, but he is not a virgin to the Washed Up Walkons Army. He's been around us for probably quite a while, if Kluver brought him on as the very first guest that we've had. And I'm really looking forward to getting to talk to him and kind of see what the fans' perspective of this podcast, as well as the fans' perspective of Iowa football is, get to know James a little better, and have a jolly old time like we do on this podcast. James, welcome. And I hope that was a good enough introduction and better than Kluver would have done.
Hard to top. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
James, a lot of people have asked. I mean, the Washed Up Walkons account has, I think it's just past 8,500 followers on Twitter. And then obviously Drake and I have like somewhere between like 15 and 20,000 followers on Twitter, even though Drake's on a hiatus. I don't know if he'll ever make his way back. He seems to be doing just fine. Clearly he can still give intros. That was Drake, you're in top form. When you said that you're coming in high and dry, I don't know if there's a better status for you. High and dry seems to be about where you sit all the time. So you're pretty used to that. Clearly very comfortable bringing James in there. But yeah, James, you're the first one. How does it feel to go along with how Drake started this? How does it feel to pop the cherry here and make a fan appearance on this show after 200 episodes?
It's awesome. A little nerve-wracking. I don't want to say something and have the wrath of the social media come down on me. But I'm stoked, man. I'm glad to be here. I love the podcast, and hopefully I have some interesting insight to give you guys on what it's like to just be a listener and a Hawkeye fan.
I'm gonna explain how James got here in a second, so that if some of you are sitting there wondering, well, frick, man, I'd love to be on the show. I'll explain how to give you that opportunity. Yeah, James, when did you start listening to the show?
I don't remember the exact episode number or date, but it was the post-loss Iowa versus Wisconsin 2019. Okay. The first episode I listened in on.
Yep. So that was when Kevin went off, right? He had his whole monologue about.
Yes. Iowa, or KF doesn't need Iowa. Iowa needs KF.
Oh shit.
So that's a regular line that I use all the time since that episode.
That's a pretty good line, Drake. We need to get that guy on the podcast more.
If that guy wasn't such a shit podcast co-host, there would probably be a lot more good insight and one-liners that you could use, because Kevin is a pretty intelligent, witty guy.
Yeah.
But he tends to keep all of that to himself because he's just trying to stuff his pockets like he's Warren fucking Buffett.
He really is. He's Kevin Buffett. That's what he is. I agree, Drake. I think, and James, you would probably echo this. Kevin, if he had his own solo podcast where he could be prompted to like talk about subjects,
he better have a really good prompter, because if it was just Kevin trying to be like Bill Burr on the Monday morning podcast, it would be horrible.
No, he would never be able to. Yeah, but he has good content when he gets riled up. I don't know.
Absolutely.
So for those listening, James joins us as a third tier Walk-On Army member, one of the elite, some would say. If you guys don't know what the Walk-On Army is all about, it is an extra way to support the podcast. Truly is the way that we stand. Like, we stand on the legs, on the stilts of the Walk-On Army. They allow the back end stuff to happen here, me to put in quite a bit of time on the back side of this. Drake, he's the talent. He sits there in the bucket hat with the popcorn. I believe that's the Panda.
Don't disrespect my sweatshirt. It's Panda Orange Chicken Antisocial Club.
Yeah.
Love it.
He just sits there and looks pretty. And a lot of work goes on behind the scenes. And he does recognize me on that, which is good, because it's hard to get Drake to give me credit on anything else. Walk On Army, patreon.com/washed up walk-ons. You can find 3 tiers. There's a $4, $8, and $12 tier. And on the $12 tier, you get a lot of things. And I'm not going to run through them all. You can go to that link and check it out. But some of those things are early access to the episode, sometimes posted as much as like 2 days ahead of time. For those that like really like to get in and listen to the episodes, we have a few people that just geek out over that. Immediate video access, which isn't always great because some, like,
I thought you said you weren't going to describe what was on the Patreon, and now you're literally doing that.
I'm just giving you some. I'm giving you some of the stuff, bro.
It's a good thing I brought some jokes, because otherwise we're off to a rough start.
I don't think so. I think I'm explaining exactly how James got here. Okay.
And the listeners are like, man, we already told these assholes we don't care. Let's hear about James.
All right, let's hear about James, and we'll just move right to James.
James, how long have you been a Hawk fan for real?
What's that?
Like, how long have you been dying hard for the Hawks?
Since birth.
So how many coaches have you been through? How many eras?
Oh, I mean, I was born in 95. When did Ferentz take over? 99?
Yeah. So you're just 1 year younger than us then.
Yeah. All I know is the Kirk Ferentz. Watching live football, the only era I know is Kirk Ferentz era. That's all I know.
That's all you need to know.
Is anybody in your family ever been part of the Fire Kirk Ferentz mob? And like, do you still recognize them as family?
No, actually, that's one thing that I was raised as being a Hawkeye fan is you can't really out-coach a coach. I mean,
wow.
You know what I mean? I mean, trust me, there's some really bad coaches out there, but we're not the type of people to like sit there and, Iowa should be winning national titles and Kirk Ferentz is what's holding Iowa back. Like, we're just not that kind of fan.
That's a really interesting point that I wish a lot of people on Twitter would take that stance.
Me too.
So, man, you're so rational and logical, James. It's incredible. I didn't know those people were out there.
I tried.
As a fan, and Drake and I are fans. Kevin's a fan now.
Very much just a fan at this point.
But we're always going to come at things from a former player perspective, and there's always going to be that bias. As a fan who strictly is on the outside of the program and always will be, what is your stance on a national championship and how competitive the Hawks should be in the Big Ten each year, or in a decade span of time, or on the national level? What does that look like from your perspective? What do you think?
I don't really watch. I'm just a huge college football nut in general, college sports fan in general. And to me, like, if the national title is your end all be all, I think you're missing out on a lot of what college sports are. To me, like I said, I actually went to that Wisconsin game that they lost, and you guys had that episode that I watched or listened to. But for me, that game is like just as important as a national title for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Like, I recognize that, and Kirk Ferentz and the team, they're not walking into that situation trying to lose, as some fans would have you think. I mean,
incredible, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't watch it. I mean, would it be sick if Iowa was in a national title position? Absolutely. I mean, that'd be disgusting. But if they go 7-5 or whatever, and they have a hard fought battle and there's a lot of fun games to watch, and I'm hanging out with my family and friends, watching Hawks, talking Hawks. I mean, and maybe that makes me a mediocre fan or whatever, but I don't know. That's what I get out of it. I just love watching college sports in general.
Fuck, we got a good one here for this.
I mean, I can really appreciate that perspective of you understand that the business of college football is entertainment, and it's getting money to the universities and to the NCAA, and it really has nothing to do with the athletes. And we're putting our balls out on the line every single week to entertain the fans and to live out our own dreams.
Exactly.
Like, to think that we're not giving it 100% is asinine. And
I'll go on a short tangent about
Please
that
do.
game. I try to be a rational fan, but I remember, you always take it more personal when you like buy a ticket to a game and you go on the road And I'm sitting in Camp Randall and Hawks just lost, and it just stings a little bit harder, because that was the game that I went to that year, But
yeah, you feel a personal connection to it. Like,
exactly.
Why couldn't they win for me?
Right. And so I would say that I maybe was buying in a little bit to the social media response and the Sunday morning coaches, and not to a heavy degree, but maybe a little bit just down on like, God dang it, why, And then I listened to that episode and heard you guys go off about how, Nate Stanley probably fucking lost consciousness trying to go across the goal line that game. And, they don't go into Camp Randall expecting to find a way to lose. They might have got out coached, they might have got outplayed, but at the end of the day, they're still trying their hardest, and you got to respect that,
That it's one of the things that actually is crazy. I just saw a fan on Twitter. I tweeted about Caitlin Clark's effort in the game yesterday. I mean, for those that watched, we're recording this on Saturday after the women lost to UConn, which, by the way, UConn is insane about. Like,
Yes.
it's fun to watch UConn women's basketball. I don't care what you say. And I tweeted something about Caitlin Clark's effort, and someone responded to me with, I wish the guys would play with that same kind of intensity. And I was like, my guy. You think Jordan Bohannon wakes up in the morning and they got Indiana or like Penn State on the schedule and they're just like, you know what? I'm going 40% today.
Yeah.
Fuck it. You know what?
Yeah.
The eggs and bacon didn't taste quite right this morning. I'm giving it 2/3 effort. We'll see if we win. I don't care. It's like, what kind of people think that that's actually the mindset? Was Iowa's defense poor at times? Yeah, it looked like that. We don't have a lot of great athletes to be able to guard people who are
and
dribble.
You know what's similar? We were just talking about Wisconsin and playing Wisconsin, and you were just talking about how you don't really think it's an issue of getting out coached. When we play Wisconsin, it really isn't an issue of getting out coached.
No,
it's an issue of sometimes our guys are too damn stupid to understand how to correctly block a 3-4 defense, because the fact that one of their guys on the line of scrimmage is technically an outside linebacker. And I've been in situations where guys just couldn't figure it out. Mm-hmm. And then also the old saying, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes.
So true.
Sometimes when you line up against those guys in Camp Randall, it doesn't seem right. Like, it's exactly the same as when we lined up against Michigan in 2016, found a way to beat them, got her done, did not belong on the same field. Like, when I walked out on the field to play a play, their Jimmies were better than our Joes.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes it's just like that, man.
I think it's hard for fans to accept that. The players have no issue accepting that, because me, Drake, most of our teammates, 99% of our teammates, the ones that are playing, we're very in tune with how skilled we are. We also know how skilled an offense we have, how skilled of a defense we have, how our special teams are. We know exactly where we're at. But fans, they don't have to see that on a daily basis. They want to fantasize that our guys are just as good as their guys. And they're wrong. They're just wrong sometimes. And sometimes, not always, that is the biggest factor in a game. And I maybe you could speak to that, James. I don't know. But I think sometimes fans, like, they think that we're on an even playing field, and sometimes we're not.
That's actually one of my favorite parts about being a Hawkeye fan is, I mean, like, I'm glad you guys can say it because I feel bad saying it as a fan, but it is true. The talent gap is often visible.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
But that's the awesome part is, like you said, but got it done against Michigan. I mean, those are the moments that, a national title aside, when you can freaking stomp Ohio State into the dirt when they clearly have way more talent. I mean, it's just the hard truth. And you just stomp them into a mud hole. I mean, how can you not absolutely live for those moments and ride the rough moments on your way there? That's what I love about it as an Iowa fan.
Yeah, man. I look at it this way. If we would have played for a national title, I probably wouldn't have even seen the field. If we weren't playing for national titles, I got to score touchdowns, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. You give a little bit, you take a little bit.
Yeah.
We had to work maybe a little bit harder, but at the end of the day, we evened. Even though we were one of the worst classes in the history of Iowa football, recruiting wise,
True.
By the end of it, we evened the playing field pretty well.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
James, you just mentioned Michigan, Ohio State. You're the same age as us. In your time being a Hawkeye fan, what are your favorite moments? Not even doesn't even have to be football. What's your favorite Hawkeye memories?
Oh man.
And it could be one of those games we just talked about because those are huge.
I mean, I feel like Ohio State, that game always gets talked about all the time.
Were you there?
I was not. No,
Oh.
I was not there. I actually, 100% honest, my dad and I were working on like a car in his shop or something.
You thought we were going to get fuck rolled,
and
huh?
we had it on the TV in the shop as like background noise, like, well, let's see what happens. And then like, we're like, they're up by 2 touchdowns right now or whatever. And then, next thing you know, we're watching the whole game. Any single time that Iowa can beat Nebraska would have to be a top tier moment for me, just because grew up in Western Iowa, loads of Husker fans living in that part of Iowa, right? And just cocky, national title this, national title that. So anytime that they can be shattered like that is fun for me. But I don't know. I mean, the whole Ricky Stanzi era was when I really remember paying attention to Hawkeye football like really well.
Mm-hmm.
That whole era was fun to me. Watching a kid that I knew from my high school play football for Iowa, Dominic Alvis, that was always cool to see him get a couple of tackles. And
he was also a phenomenal teammate.
Was he?
A beast, dude.
Yeah.
Horrible back problems.
Yeah.
If it weren't for his destroyed back, he was an absolute monster.
Yeah. He great guy too. His family is well known from where I grew up, and good guy. And it was super cool to see him, live out his dream the way he got to. And like you said, it probably didn't go exactly how he wanted it to, but it was super awesome. Like, I know that guy and he just made a tackle, like.
Sometimes when you put that much on your body, like Dom Alvis was not meant to be as big as he got. And sometimes when you do that to your body fights back and it just says, I'm done with it. I had that same problem. There's been plenty of teammates whose bodies just quit on them because they put too much stress on it, trying to get too big. Like, poor bastard, but he was a tough, gritty old boy.
Yep.
100%.
Sounds about right.
So James, you've been listening for 19 to 2020. So you've been listening for about a year and a half.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
We had made really good strides from 1 year prior to when you started listening. We started in about October of 2018. And I think that's exactly 1 year to when you started listening, before you started listening.
Yep.
We made a lot of strides in those first 60 episodes. That episode that you first listened to is number 63.
Okay.
For those that want to go back and listen. From 63 to 200, what do you think has changed the most on this podcast? Negatively or positively? How have you seen this evolve from the fans' perspective?
Well, first of all, just the level of guests that you guys have gotten on. I mean, dude, that Drew Tate episode was worth my $16 admission this month.
It was hanging with one of the boys, right?
It was off the chain, dude. That guy is a freaking animal.
Yeah. He is an animal, dude.
But
did they get the unedited version on Patreon?
So for those listening, Drew was a creative, colorful guy, as you guys heard, and all of Washed Up Walk-Ons Nation will get to the little insight here. I probably took out 5 minutes worth of stuff that he said, because without giving too much away,
it just got a little colorful, the boys were hanging out, getting loose.
It got colorful. We'll just say that.
Right.
So you got most of Drew Tate. You didn't get all of Drew Tate because some of the stuff, if I would have left it in there, we might have put some dents in the reputation of old number 5. So it was still good though. Yeah.
But I mean, also like the merch drop, that was obviously a big deal for you guys. And I'm pretty sure I blew like $80 on that.
Nice. Thanks, bro.
Hey, see, but that's the thing is, it wasn't a big thing for us, big thing for the Children's Hospital. So kudos to you because
Absolutely.
we didn't see a dime of that money. I can cross my heart.
Yep.
Hand to the sky, didn't see a dime. So,
and
kudos
that's
you guys.
another thing. I won't mention the specific page, but there's a page. of
Oh, Hawkeye Heaven?
Okay,
Those
I guess we're
pieces of shit.
we'll just call them out like that. Where
Some pieces of shit.
they do this,
Get your own original ideas, cocksuckers.
So there you go, James. This is how it goes on this podcast.
Okay.
Drake just takes care of everything. He
Okay.
does it all. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. But he did a merch drop where like if you spend $50, $5 is gonna go towards the Children's Hospital. And it's like, bro, either
on an idea that
or,
wasn't even his. He took the words out of somebody else's mouth and profited off them.
Right. And it's like, dude, if you're gonna get 1 foot in, 2 feet in or no feet in, man, like either none of it's going to the hospital or actually stick to your guns and make it happen.
That's not the first time that they've stolen original ideas.
Right. But to turn it back to you guys, that's something that I've also really appreciated is you guys have gone 2 feet in with just about everything you did. I mean, if I'm allowed to do a little bit of sucking here for a second.
Yeah. Suck away, dude.
Please do.
Suckage. I think a lot of Hawkeye fans can or should appreciate how like last summer's issues came about. And you guys didn't. I remember you guys talking about how you thought about maybe just not even almost disbanding the podcast, I think, at one point.
We were in.
Listen, man, I wanted to hit the highway. I've wanted to hit the highway several times on you guys. So.
Drake quit the pod. So, So here's another. We're learning a lot of inside facts here. This is awesome. Drake has quit the podcast on 3 separate occasions. One was like way early on when, I think originally I wanted to do like 1 episode a week after we got out of that initial season. Was that right, Drake? I wanted to be like, yeah, let's just go 1 a week.
Nah, he wanted to do it broken up into little parts of where there would be a month or 6 weeks without an episode or whatever, 2 months. And then there was a part in time where he wanted to do content. I'm like, dude, listen, if we're not making episodes, I quit.
Yeah.
That was the first time.
But then another time you went like randomly, I don't know what you were doing. The third time was last summer. Like shit hit the fan. Everybody was looking at us for answers.
Yeah.
And we were like, man, like and it was very hard to podcast about Iowa football last summer and continue podcasting. And we took like, I don't know, 2 weeks off around that time because it was just like, how do we get on and just talk about this?
And here's the other thing. We started this whole podcast because it was really fun. And we continue to do the podcast because it was fun. It became very not fun when people expected answers and things of us when we're like, dude, hands up, don't shoot. I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like, let us catch our bearings a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a very not fun situation because we were kind of in a way put on both a media pedestal, but then also we were criminalized immediately because we were white dudes with a podcast.
It was dude, I'm telling you, I see the numbers, that podcast, and really the episodes around that subject, like the 2 or 3 episodes we did, those episodes have 4 times the listens of all of our other episodes because everybody didn't matter. If you hated the Washed Up Walk-Ons, didn't matter. You were listening to episode 123. Yeah. They all came and downloaded episode 123 of the Washed Up Walk-Ons because they wanted to hear what was going on. But at the same time, it was like, it's kind of like a he said, she said kind of thing. It's like, well, also, these guys are on the bad guys' side of this whole part. Like, it looked
without
like
even knowing anything else.
Well, it's like, well, these guys have their opinions. They're telling their opinions, and like for a lot of people, it was okay, but they're just white guys who had a great experience in the program. So it was like, okay, you're all coming to hear the opinion, but you already know where we're coming from.
Right.
And then the judgment, we got a lot of, it was tough, man.
But what I was just gonna say about it is that's what, for me, like I feel like anytime that you get your own belief system challenged like that, whether you think it's legitimate or not, anytime that you can be kind of forced into like taking an introspective look and like, was there anything that I saw or did, or was there anything, and just kind of getting like a grasp on your own self, you can either grow from that and learn lessons, whatever, or you can just shut the podcast down and be done with it. And we're not, and I feel like a lot of people should appreciate the fact that you guys even had on some of the players that had some of these accusations and were willing to spark a discussion and not just throw it all away and we're done with it. You know what I mean?
We tried to have more on too, man. We tried.
Yeah.
I mean, Drake and I were contacting people for 2 weeks trying to get people on to talk, and like, I know people didn't want to talk. James and Lomax were great to have on, and then
Absolutely.
a lot of people had problems with that episode too as well. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to please everybody.
No.
Drake, what I'm figuring out here is that James would be a way better co-host than Kevin. I mean, his mic sounds good. He talks well. I mean,
he shows up on time.
He shows up on time early.
He seems to have bountiful Hawkeye knowledge.
Yeah. He wears the fucking merch on the show. Like, I mean,
well, I had to suck up a little bit.
Yeah. No, that hat is one of my favorite hats too. I have.
Oh, I love it. I wear it all the time.
It's incredible. Awesome. If you could change one thing about the podcast, if you could make one thing better about the podcast, what would it be?
Oh,
or is there anything? Are we perfect? You could tell us that too.
You're not perfect. I'm sorry, guys.
Damn it.
Dang, I'm on the spot. Everybody's listening to me.
If you don't have an answer, you don't have to.
I will say that I missed your guys' first like watch hangout party thing for the Illinois, the Big Ten tournament game. But that would be my one suggestion is maybe try doing so. I think it'd be sweet, like when bowl season comes around, if you guys got the time to host a watch party when the Hawks are in a bowl game or something like that. That'd be one of my suggestions, I guess. But
yeah. And we're trying that. Yeah. The logistics behind those things are a little weird too. Like when we want to watch a game, we can't show the game because that's illegal to then put that out. But yeah, I agree. We need to up our engagement there with some of the Patreon members. Do you have any questions for us before we let you go? Because this has been fantastic.
I have a couple.
Yeah.
I made sure to write them down. So I'm married to a Cyclone graduate.
It's tough. I'm married to a Husker, so
yeah. Ooh, that's worse. See, and I'm not one of the Hawkeye fans that like, I like to see Iowa State do well when they're not playing Iowa. That's just how I was raised, right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yep.
But one of their favorite sayings to me is, what does an Iowa State fan and an Iowa fan have in common? Neither one of them attended University of Iowa. And so what is your guys' perspective on a guy like me that, I went to college at a small town in Nebraska. I have no affiliation with the University of Iowa at all, other than I'm a fan of their sports teams and whatever. So what is your guys' perspective as people that have been in the grinder that is Hawkeye football and just being a student towards fans that are just fans because that's how they were raised, just the average Iowa fan in general? How do you guys feel about them?
You want to go for that, Drake?
I was not a big fan of fans when I was a player. I was a pretty big prick. I was fine with the fans who were, who showed up on spring day and were just very happy to get a little bit of engagement. Like those felt like true fans. The fans that I heard yelling at my teammates and players that I then got into verbal altercations with while inside Kinnick Stadium, was not a big fan of those guys. So I've since started to understand a little bit more about fans coming from this podcast, and just like their true obsession is what leads them to act the way that they do sometimes. So like most of the time fans are harmless and they're great for the sports, but at the same time, like chill out.
I agree there. Yeah.
Yeah. Fans for me are we've had this interesting perspective of like, hey, we are now you, but we were once them. And here's the bridge, here's the gap between that. And I've had an interesting but entertaining time trying to get we've had a lot of people message us, just like you listened to that podcast with Kevin and said, wow, that really changed my perspective. That has been great for me, because it feels like, I'm very disconnected from Hawkeye football when it comes to, oh, Hawks lost the game. How does that affect the rest of my life? How does that affect me outside of just watching that game? Nada, not at all. And some people let it affect them too much. It affects how they treat other people for the next couple days, how they live their life, how happy they are. It's just like, man, that's just not the way to do it. So that's how I look at it. But yeah.
All right. Yeah. I try to be the fan. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm jumping up and down watching my TV when they're playing or, dropping F-bombs when things aren't going well, but I try not to let it affect me too much other than just being a diehard.
Right.
Wearing my gear in Omaha, Nebraska, that's
let's go.
That's my next question was, I actually tweeted this at you, and I'm just curious on this perspective. How does a team like, say, Kansas, or I'm trying to think of other programs that are in the dirt, Rutgers, how do their players wake up on a Saturday morning, ready, trying to get ready to go play Oklahoma or something like that? How do they handle that?
And clearly things can't be as serious in those programs as they are at Iowa, because you just wouldn't lose that much. Yep. If they were doing things the same way that we were doing things, they would be getting better results, just plain and simple. So their players aren't working as hard. They're not as tough. They're probably equally talented to our level, because we're not that talented of a team, but we're hard-nosed as hell. And those teams just simply aren't. And you feel them fold right underneath you when you play them. Like, we played really bad. We weren't that good of a team in 2016. We played really bad at Rutgers and still found a way to beat them in the end, just because they were just simply not, they didn't belong on the same field as us. But I don't know, man. It just, the way to explain it is that they just aren't built of the same material that we are.
Yeah. A lot of those guys are playing for themselves, right? Like, it's their way to get through college, right? So it's a whole nother, it's not even about winning, it's like they made it, right? It may be the first person to go to college in their family or something, some kind of situation like that. And so they're playing for themselves. Some of them have a chance at the league, but yeah, that's,
how do you guys get up to wake up and, we got Ohio State coming into town today? What do you guys do to get up for a game where you're clearly the underdogs? Clearly you're not supposed to win this game. So what's your guys' mindset, or was your mindset if getting up for games like that?
If you needed help waking up to play Ohio State at home, you need to find something else to be doing.
Yeah.
I figured that was probably the case, but I had to ask.
I was a Viagra producing factory that day. I could have just shot out Viagra tablets from fucking 6 a.m. till 2 a.m., dude. That's how fired up I was for that game.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, James, anything else, or?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, we're so happy that, first of all, you support the podcast and you're a Walk-On Army member. And again, go back and listen to the intro where Drake got mad at me for trying to explain it after I said I wasn't going to explain it. If you want to figure out how to be like James and support the Walk-On Army, this went better than I think I expected and I could have hoped. So James, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for continuing to listen to the podcast and being part of the Walk-On Army.
Absolutely, boys. Hawks by a million, baby.
Let's go. That's it. Episode, I don't know, because I'm not sure where this is going. So we'll talk to you next time. Peace.